Hello, everyone.
Hey, how are you
Hi.
doing, Daniel? All right, everybody, let's get going. Welcome back. This is the OL Community Weekly Call. We have a pretty light agenda today. We don't have a guest speaker today, and we've got some news from around the community and some updates that we want to go through, so I'm glad you came. But this will be, I think, a fairly short meeting. Of course, we always leave time for questions, so if you've got questions and such, happy if it runs longer, no problem at all. All right. What is the state of OL as we sit here today? It is day 116 from the launch of the project, the public launch. We are currently on Epoch 134, and we've got 76 validators in the validator set right now. That's up from 68 last week. There was some good adjustment in the validator set this week, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Current number of Carpe installations, we're sitting right at 1,100 right now. So we've had a bit of a drop off in active Carpe installations. But because of some of the news we're going to talk about in a little bit, I expect that's going to change. Discord community, our Discord community growth, we're sitting right now at 2,224 active members. That's up slightly from last week, but not big change in those numbers. What's happened since the last time we got together here on Wednesday? Well, a couple of things. One of the biggest pieces of news is that we have brought on Danielle as community manager. So Danielle is joining us and really helping us just try to keep things on track with community and give us better time zone coverage as well. I'm based on the west coast of the United States. He's in a very different time zone. So between the two of us, we should have pretty good coverage inside the community. Daniel's also been involved in the project since almost day one of, and when I say day one here, I mean the launch, the public launch, and has been contributing to the community and getting more and more involved. And it just seemed like the right thing to do. So we asked him, and he was kind enough to accept. Danielle, I invite you up to the stage this morning in case you wanted to say a few words, introduce yourself, tell us why you're interested in OL, etc. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you so much, Rico, for the introduction. Yeah, I joined OL, I think on the 17th of November, 2 days after its launch. And from the first day, it got my attention because it's all about being fair, decentralized. And I guess I'm an example of it because, well, I am not part of the Genesis contributors, but after some activity in the community, now I'm here. It shows how fair the community, the idea of the OL is, and I'm really excited to be in a position to be more active because, as some of you already know, we are having important discussions in the community, and sometimes we need to coordinate that discussion a bit better to be a bit organized. And I'm happy to be able to contribute to that as well. So really happy to be here. And in case anyone have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And for those of you who are curious, what in the world does a community manager do? If you take a look at the handbook, the position description for all the key roles, including the community manager, is there on the handbook. You can see what the responsibilities are. You can see what goes with that. And it is being supported from out of Hustle Karma. So feel free to jump in and get involved. Okay, let's do a roundup of all the working group activity for this last week. We had a couple of groups that did not meet this last week, so this should be fairly straightforward. Comstark, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate it. So the Hustle Karma, not too much stuff. To be honest, there weren't many big changes throughout the different groups for the weekly roundups. But there is a couple key points. One, obviously, Daniel's community manager, so we went over that, and we're trying to sort out a bounty for the role. So again, just so people are, if you're trying to figure out what the different groups are, if you're new, the Hustle Karma group is very, I don't want to undefined, but it's essentially us trying to figure out the best process for getting tasks out there and paying bounties. So all roles, including things like community manager, we still want to seek out the right process to find a bounty, so that someone like Daniel can get paid for work, because we are a community that believes that people are economically incentivized, and we want to get the right compensation out to the right people. So that's one thing that came up. We had from the design group just questions about how much influence does the broker have over bounty tasks, and the answer was kind of like a lot, because concerns were coming out that bounties shouldn't be based just on the amount of hours that you put in. Perhaps it should also be based on other important items like difficulty of work, like how important a certain task is. So if you're curious about the type of work that we're doing, we're thinking about those things. How do we properly compensate people? How do we properly ensure that the right work gets done at the right time for the right reasons? So if you're always interested, feel free to jump on that call. We meet on Tuesdays in the morning. And the only other thing that came up was we had comments from Red Devil. I'm not sure if he's on the call now, talking about, what do we do about bounty payments to, say, Russian nationals, right? We all know what's happening in the news. We all know that there's Russian individuals who work in our community and help support our community, are very intelligent people, and they're having a hard time in real jobs getting payment. And it's like, what do we do for them? And the answer that kind of came back from the community is, look, we're a fully decentralized organization, and for individuals that do work, individuals get paid. And that's one of the great things about decentralization and why protocols like OL are so important, because payment to individuals that do work shouldn't be stopped because of politicians or political beliefs. You do work, you get paid, and that's kind of the method of the process. So those are the things that we talk about. Again, if you want to learn about Hustle Karma, you want to get involved, it's a really cool topic that's just exploding generally around crypto. We meet Tuesday morning, so feel free to jump in. Thanks.
Excellent update. Thanks for that. Christian, over to you, buddy.
Sure, yeah. Can you hear me okay, Rico? I'm using some headphones.
Yeah, you sound good.
Yeah, good, okay. So first, from the engineering working group, a couple key topics. On the bridge, Coin111 had been kind of working on a transfer, essentially an agent to transfer funds between accounts. He's built out initial version. Next step is on the Ethereum side to add transfer functionality on Ethereum to a Rust agent. And this is also going to involve some changes to OL and standard library. So like good progress being made there. And the Make Whole sort of project keeps going on. I think we've identified sort of the addresses, or members of OL identified addresses for this, and now it's sort of confirming the amounts. There's also been kind of a thought that there needs to be more focus given to the CarPay app itself. Essentially bringing more data onto the app from the OL chain, ideally include things like account type and events. The group thought it was important to that the users understand sort of timeline of transfers and just other key information. And finally, wallet-to-wallet transfer functionality it seems close to being rolled out. So that's another kind of great development in the CarPay app. So that's it from the engineering working group. I'll jump over to the governance working group. I think on the governance working group, based off a conversation that you, Rico, and Zucky have had, there's been a thought that, maybe we need to take a step back and kind of take a broader, more holistic view of sort of the broader ecosystem from an economic and incentive standpoint. There's just a couple items like, potential SIP concerns with the team's proposal, sort of the effect of slow wallets and sort of other macro items and how they can, inadvertently affect the community. So I think, that's sort of work that the governance working group is looking into, and sort of with the background being that the node architecture of the original Diem sort of ecosystem that we sort of are kind of building off of or using as our basis was really built for an enterprise IT department, which is sort of different from how this sort of OL is run. And then there's also sort of discovery being done around, and when I say discovery, I mean sort of initial research and initial kind of work identified on how we even research this to move it forward. But sort of beginning on a governance token discussion. And the thought here is sort of having a token that's specifically focused on governance and, rewards different doers in the community, whether it's working group members, people who complete bounties, our social impact partners, Carpe miners, validators, etc. And these tokens would be really meant for governance. So they would have dates to expire on and sort of other kind of guardrails to make sure they get used for voting. And that's it from those two working groups.
All right, excellent. Branding and comms and coordinators are the working groups where I currently serve as the archivist. Neither of those groups met last week, but they are meeting this week. Branding and comms is at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern today. And then the coordinators group is at, I believe, 9:30 a.m. on Friday, Pacific time, 12:30 Eastern. So that is the working group roundup. I wanted to take just a couple of minutes and talk about a couple of those news items that came out of the updates, specifically from Comstock and Christian. Excuse me. The governance discussions right now are starting to get really interesting. You may have noticed the governance channel in Discord got renamed this week to DAO or No DAO. And that's really just us sort of signaling to the community, it's time for us to start engaging around that discussion, right? Yeah, we're decentralized, that's a fact, but it's time to stop being so disorganized and figure out exactly what sort of organizational structure is going to work to allow this project to scale and still stay true to our project values. Is DAO the right answer? There's a lot of things weighing in its favor, but there's also concerns about walking down that path. Some of those issues are now starting to be discussed in that channel. We set up that channel because we know not everybody can always make the governance working group meetings, and we wanted broader community opinion on this. We will be taking up this discussion more across the next few weeks in the governance working group, and we definitely invite people to engage on this. This is a big decision. It also has, it takes quite a bit of work for us not only to set up the systems, test them, make sure they're working, refine them, and then move to a state where we can get this on chain. So are we a DAO right now? Well, arguably, yes, we are. Do we want to formalize that structure? That's to be decided. And what would it look like? That's also to be decided. And we want community input on this. So please do engage around that topic. It's an important one. Similarly, as we started to look at situations like the relationship with our social impact partners, the Red Cross, CARE, et cetera, questions started to arise about whether we actually had an optimal design in place to be able to embrace those partners, and even more broadly, whether the current subsidies scheme for validators is going to be sufficient to continue to provide sufficient capital for the project to be sustainable, right? Our community wallets, which are essentially our treasuries, are populated by shares of income earned by the validators. And as that validator set moves closer to 100, those subsidies decrease until they finally hit zero. The idea being that once we have 100 validators in place, well, there's no scarcity of validators, hence there's no need to subsidize them. And also eventually that gas transaction fees will help provide subsidies that will attract a sufficient base of validators. That sounds really good. We're actually modeling it right now to see, though, that if it holds up, particularly in a situation where gas fees have yet to reach, the sort of level that's needed to continue to incentivize validators. As Christian pointed out, running a validator in this network is non-trivial, right? It takes two VMs. It takes some hands-on time. It's not like standing up an Ethereum node, right? Which is easy as can be. So there's an expense associated with that. Is it appropriate to completely cut off a subsidy to those people in the absence of gas is one of the questions we're dealing with. So these are interesting discussions. They're rather complicated in the sense that they involve not only human factors like how to incentivize good behavior, but also really just economic design as these two factors collide. And I mean by that the subsidies and the gas revenues. So there's a lot going on in that space right now. Please jump in and engage. The other thing I wanted to speak on just a second is these changes that are coming to the wallet that were referenced a while ago. First things first, There's pull request right now that's under review that would modify Carpe to enable Carpe users to send coins. Carpe is not only a mining app, it's also a wallet, right? And we intended to build out the wallet functionality on it. The big important thing that's missing, obviously, is the ability for our Carpe users to send coins to each other. We expect to have that rolled out very shortly. There is a possibility it could happen as soon as next week, but we don't have a firm date on that. So keep your eyes peeled on that. Second, as Christian referenced, the make whole has identified the addresses that need to be paid and the amounts that need to go to the addresses. So right now we're simply finalizing the code on that so that we can complete that and make whole our Carpe users at long last. There is an open issue here, if you've been following the discussion, which is the slow wallets that are in the system. Are the variables attached to the slow wallets optimal? And by that I mean the epoch that the slow wallets are opened up and the daily transaction limits that are forced on slow wallets. Right now, the epoch is set for 10,000 and the slow wallet daily amount is set to 1,000. Are those numbers right? Possibly not, but this is something that we as a community need to decide. The good news is making this change is very, very simple, but we do need community consensus around what are the right numbers on that. So keep an eye out for that discussion. It will be coming up shortly. That discussion may be our first chance to test out a new Discord-based community voting system that Danielle and I have been working on. Excuse me. As you all know, the only governance methodology or modality, if you prefer, that's in place right now is on-chain voting by the validators in regard to protocol upgrades. We don't have anything in place for really community signaling, taking the temperature of the community, figuring out what the community's will is. And while it's not perfect as a temporary solution, an interim solution, if you will, Danielle and I have been looking at a combination of bots and enhancements to Discord that allow us to take with reasonable confidence polls of the Discord community. I would expect we might see that rolled out for the very first time in regard to the slow wallet parameters. So stay tuned on that. Danielle and I have set up a Discord test server and we're kicking the tires on configuration of those things right now. We'll probably do a couple of trial runs, probably with the governance working group first. Obviously, if anybody else is interested, you're welcome to join. And then we'll roll it out to the broader community, set up a dedicated channel for it, and use it as a way to poll the community. And then the final point that is related to wallets, if you have followed any of the discussions related to the key roles, that is the coordinators, brokers, and archivists, there's been an agreement that those roles should be compensated in some fashion. The final way that we landed that was that there would be a community wallet set up for payment of those key roles. It would receive donations from the validators or other individuals, and then those amounts would be shared among the people that have the key roles. The exact mechanism for the split and the sharing has yet to be worked out. But we had an opportunity to create the community wallet and populate it with coins, and we have taken that step. So we just set up the community wallet yesterday. We'll drop the first tranche of coins into it today and hopefully build that up a little bit so we've got a little bit of running room. And then we this week in the coordinators working group and the governance working group will probably tackle the issue of how do we set the disbursement amounts and the methodology. So once again, making good on a promise that we made people in the past, and that's sort of our theme for this week is how do we get those things in place? Boy, I don't know if you guys can hear my dog barking or not. I hope you can't. He's going nuts right now. That is pretty much all I have on the news front for everybody this week. I'm going to be quiet for just a sec in case anyone up here on the stage has anything they want to add. And if anyone in the audience has any questions, put up your hand and I'll invite you up here to the stage. All right, I am going to just keep talking then, and if anybody has anything, jump in. One note, the branding and comms meeting that's coming up here in about 45 minutes or 40 minutes, we will be looking at brand identity. We've seen some good ideas coming out of the people that are working on the brand identity for OL. Those are in the design channel if you want to take a look at those. We'll be getting a presentation on a new round of revisions on those ideas today. It's always interesting work and it's fun stuff. If you're interested in that at all, come join us at the top of the hour. We're also looking very much right now for someone who's interested in taking a role in content creation. Both somebody who wants to blog on the OL blog and get engaged with the OL social media presence. So if that's something that you are interested in doing, please reach out to Branding and Comms. All right, this may be our shortest weekly community meeting on record, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I'll ask one more time, does anyone have any questions or comments? If so, now's the time because I'm just about to wrap this up. Oh, we've got one question from the crowd. Ian, I'm inviting you up. Come on up. There you go. Ian, you're on mute.
Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Hi. I'm just on the CarPay. I'm a very basic user, just starting out and mining. Obviously, you're going into all the technical side. For us that are just starting on mining, is it going to be worth our while just to keep going? I've seen a lot of people leaving. I've been in 4 weeks now just watching and doing the mining. I've got about 1,000 on there. I'm just wondering whether it's worth keeping going or not.
Well, it's a subjective decision, isn't it, Ian? My answer is yes, I think it is. Admittedly, the coin currently is not listed anywhere, so it's essentially monopoly money. Will the coin at some point be listed? It might, but courtesy of SEC regulations and the idea of not having tokens labeled as securities, we really aren't permitted to speculate on that, okay? So read into that whatever you will, Ian. I would say at this point in time, considering how non-resource intensive running CarPay is, right? It's easy to do, it doesn't eat up your computer, et cetera, that your cost for earning those coins is near zero. And so I'd be patient with it, rack up some coins in that wallet and see what happens. But generally speaking, I'm quite bullish on the project. So, take that for a grain of salt if you like. It's a single person's opinion.
No, I appreciate that. Like I say, I am just starting out. I am bullish on it. I have been watching and listening what's going on, trying to learn. But thank you for your help, and I will be staying.
Excellent, Ian. Thanks a bunch. And feel free to involve in the community. There's a bunch of people out there that are willing to help. And there's dedicated channels if you're having problems with CarPay as well. And don't forget that CarPay does have an auto update functionality. So, every now and then, if you haven't done it in a while, shut it down and restart it. And when you restart it, it will auto update if there's a new release out. We're on version 0.2.2 right now, I believe is what it is. So yeah, easy to keep up these days. All right, everybody. Any other questions? Okay, well, I want to thank you all for coming again. I do appreciate it. And we will be back next week at the same time. And in the meantime, I will see you online. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.